All right, we are going to do a deep dive today. We're going to be taking a look at our two lakes. We're going to be looking at Lake Nottely real estate over in Union County and Lake Chatuge real estate here in Towns and Clay. Beautiful lake, about half in North Carolina, half in Georgia. It's been making the news a lot lately because of the spill well, the TVA Chatuge Dam safety modifications they're proposing. And we'll touch on that a little, but we'll see if that is having an effect on our market here in Towns and Clay counties. First, a look at Lake Nottely. Home sales. Let's see. Right now, there's 18 lakefront homes for sale on Lake Nottely in Blairsville. 7 homes have sold thus far this year. That's compared to 5 homes last year. So fairly close, fairly close. I think you're going to see a big difference when we get over into looking at last year and this year on Chatuge. Average days on market this year for the homes on Lake Nottely is 85 compared to 83 in 2024. Again, pretty close. The average list price on Lake Nottely this year is $1,166,255. So we're looking at about 1.16. That's compared to 678,760 last year. Big jump this year, big jump. Average sold price on Lake Nottely thus far, that's through the beginning of June, June 9th, is $1,056,000. Average sold price on Lake Nottely, $1,056,000, compared to $648,000 for this time a year ago. So big jump. Nottely's being found. I am curious if Nottely, it's only up by 2. I'm curious how Nottely's going to do over the next few years because of the TVA repairs over on Chatuge. If I were someone selling on Nottely or even considering it, the next year or two might be the best opportunity in some time because I've got a feeling a lot of people will be taking a closer look at buying a home on Nottely rather than Chatuge. Real quick, Lake Nottely land. We're talking lakefront lots. There are currently 9 lakefront lots for sale. 2 have sold thus far this year compared to 2 at this time a year ago in on Nottely. So same, a mirror. Average days on market thus far this year is 737. And again, that's based on these 2 sales. One of these homes could have been, one of these lakefront lots could have been on the market for years and the other one a day. But when you average it out, it comes to 737 days. So with just a sample of 2 solds, yeah, it's going to be skewed a little. Last year with the 2 solds, the average days on market was 314 days. The average list price of a lakefront lot on Lake Nottely right now is $252,500. $252,500 compared to last year. The average list price on Lake Nottely for a lot was $374,400. So almost $100,000 drop, but again, very small sample, only 2 solds. The average sold price this year on Lake Nottely for a lakefront lot is $192,500 compared to $302,500 last year. Now these stats are based solely upon reported sales to the local board of realtors. And I bring that up, and that's the Northeast Georgia Board of Realtors. I bring that up because I had a lady call me a while back. I put out paperwork to this effect monthly to my clients, and one of them called me, and this wasn't a client. She just got her hands on the paperwork and said that it was missing a private sale. Well, yeah, this wouldn't include like if a family member sold to someone or a FISBO, things of that nature. These are reported sales, but it is by far a majority of the sales is reported to the Northeast Georgia Board locally. Now, that's a quick look at real estate on Lake Nottely. We're going to be switching over to Lake Chatuge, but we'll get to Lake Chatuge right after these commercial messages. My name's Rick Andrews, and I so appreciate y'all tuning in every week. Thank you so much. Welcome back, folks. Today we're doing a deep dive into our local lakes. We're talking real estate on Lake Nottely and real estate on Lake Chatuge. Before the break, we reviewed Lake Nottely, pretty close to last year. Number of sales, days on market. Average list price is up quite a bit, and the average sold price is up quite a bit for homes on Lake Nottely. As far as lakefront lots, same amount of solds. Average list price is down by close to 100,000. Average sold price is down by close to 100. Average sold price is down by close to 100,000, a little over 100,000 also. Now, shifting to Lake Chatuge, the one that's been in the paper and all the news lately because of the proposed changes. Let's take a look at the stats first before we address the TVA and what effect it may already be having on lake sales. Lake Chatuge homes, 2025. There are currently 37 homes for sale on the lake. We've seen a big jump. That's not unusual, but we have seen a big jump in inventory. Again, not unusual this time of the year. We've had 4 sales thus far this year. For those 4 sales, the average days on market was 94 days. The average list price was just under $1 million at $993,625. The average sold price of a home on Lake Chatuge through approximately the first week of June was $694,750. That's $964,750. Now let's take a look at last year. How do we compare? Well, last year at this time we'd had 10 sales. 10 sales. So about 2.5 times what we have had thus far this year. So I'd say we're down quite a bit. Average days on market last year was 154. The average list price last year was $1,217,370. Now that's compared to that $993,625. So we're down as far as list price by a couple $100,000. The average sold price, that is based on those 10 sales a year ago, the average sold price of those 10 sales a year ago at this time was $1,030,270, and compared to the 4 sales, average sold price was $964,750. So down, what's that, just 60 something, approximately 60 something thousand dollars. Down a little as far as actual sold prices. Now taking a look at Lake Chatuge land. We currently have 2 vacant lots for sale. That's lakefront lots for sale on Lake Chatuge. Doesn't look like there hadn't been much for sale on the lake as far as vacant land all year. We have had 0 sales thus far this year as far as lakefront lots on Chatuge through the Northeast Georgia Board of Realtors. Thus, the average days on market is 0, the average list price is 0, and the average sold price is 0. Now let's take this year with 0 sales compared to last year at this time. At this time last year, we'd had 6 lakefront lot sales, 6 compared to 0 this year. The average days on the market of those 6 that sold was 129 days. The average list price of the 6 were $552,133, and the average sold price was a little over $519,000, over $500,000 for a piece of land on Lake Chatuge. That was the average sold price last year. Maybe that's why we've had no sales on the lake this year. No, I'm just kidding. There are people out there looking for land. We get calls all the time for people looking for lots on Lake Chatuge. It's becoming more and more rare. I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and the homes are bing, 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 bing. You literally could almost reach over and touch the other home when you got on Anna Maria Island, and that's kind of what some of the lake areas are turning into. Very, very tight on the lake, and as the prices go up, I understand why. When you're looking at $500,000 for a piece of land, and then you've got to build your lakefront home, that's expensive. That's expensive. Let's go back a little on Lake Chatuge. We went over the numbers. Well, I'll tell you, before we do that, let's look at Lake Chatuge compared to Lake Nottely. We've had 4 home sales thus far this year with an average price of a little under 965,000. Average sold price is just under 965,000 for sales. Lake Nottely's had 7 sales with the average sold price being a little over $1 million. A little more popular this year. Whereas compared to last year on Lake Chatuge, we'd had 10 sales, 10 home sales through first week in June, compared to just 5 on Lake Nottely. So we'd had twice as many sales on Chatuge last year as Lake Nottely, but this year it's almost the opposite. Let's see, the average days on market last year on Chatuge was 154 compared to 83 on Nottely. The average list price on Nottely last year was $678,760 compared to $1,217,370. So, yeah, twice. Well, no, not quite twice the average list price. Nottely was almost half the average list price of a home on Lake Chatuge last year. The average sold price on Lake Chatuge last year was a little over $1 million. The average sold price on Nottely last year was $648,000. So we're seeing a big shift, significantly more sales on Nottely this year compared to Clay, or excuse me, I always say Clay, I live over in Clay, compared to Lake Chatuge. And the average sold prices jumped quite a bit. I'm really thinking that right now, if you're considering selling ever on Lake Nottely, with what's occurring over on Chatuge, now might be the time to make that move, because it looks like Chatuge is going to be hampered a little by this TVA repair. Let's look at Chatuge long haul, though. I make a big deal of there being 10 sales a year ago and only 4 home sales, but I can tell you last year, 2023, we'd had 11 sales through the end of May. 11. So fairly close to what we had. That's 2023, 11 sales through the end of May. Last year through the end of May in 2024, that had 9. And this year we've had 3. So, yeah, we're definitely seeing a drop in sales. Looking back at the history, if you go back to 2020, for example, there had been 15 home sales through the end of May. 15 home sales through the end of May 2020. This year, 3. You look at 2019, there had been 17 home sales on Lake Chatuge compared to, again, this year, 3. So the last year we'd had, let's see, I don't see a year going back to 2019 that we'd had that few of sales. 3 through the end of May. Let's see, 11, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in 2022, 11, 13, 19 in 2021, 15 in 2020, and 17 in 2019. Wow. Yeah, we're definitely down in lot sales through the end of May this year. That's interesting. I don't know if the TVA issue is affecting it or not, but that's definitely a big drop. Speaking of the TVA and its effect on Lake Chatuge, I don't know if y'all got this packet. I went to the TVA hosted couple of live events. I want to say on May 8th, they hosted an event in Clay County. On May 13th, they hosted an event in Towns County. Uh, they basically had a bunch of graphs up, information up on easel boards, and they had a few folks there. Uh, to some extent, a Q&A, but more importantly, they would hand down a packet, I guess, and for everyone that attended, and it's regarding the proposed different proposals and the repair of the spill well on the Chatuge Dam, and they handed down a packet, several pages, but most of the information is on the first packet. The next few pages of information is mainly about just TVA, their mission, blah blah blah. It's that first page that addresses our specific dam. Starts out, the safety of the communities we serve is our top priority. That's why TVA is working to ensure the continued safe operations at Chatuge Dam. And it goes on, and it says TVA is currently considering 4 action alternatives. One of them is for 8 years, one of them is for 6 years, one of them is for 4 years, and one of them is for 5 years. These are the estimated drawdown duration. Uh, I, I genuinely think we're beginning to see quite an impact from this on sales in our area. I'm, I how can I put this? A lot of negativity regarding our lake right now, and I think we're beginning to see the impact. Hopefully that'll change. Thanks for tuning in, folks. As always, I so appreciate it.